Hi world, it's the 13th of June 2025. It's about 7:30 in the evening UK time. I sometimes ask myself, why do I continue to post videos on YouTube? I have enough work. It's not like I'm touting for it. I could retire now if I wanted to. I'm never going to retire, by the way. And I keep coming up with the same reason. I do what I do on YouTube because I love my work. I love astrology. It's what keeps me going, keeps me alive. And I retain my 40-year plus held philosophy of wanting to get astrology out into the world. I've got a lot more ways of doing it now than just doing it on YouTube, but this is my staple. Now, sometimes I say things that upset a lot of people. And I don't go out my way to upset people, but I've got a bit of a big mouth. And sometimes I get it right. And I take no pride in getting it right. At the beginning of this month, and in the week or so before, and in a few days after the beginning of this month, I have said a number of times that the period of early to mid-June, particularly from about the 4th, 5th through to about the 21st of June, was going to be absolutely bonkers. I said that this is the second of 4 periods in 2025 that are going to have a degree of massive challenge about them. The first was that long-term conjunction at the end of Pisces over late March, much of April through to very early May. This is the second. Initially, with Jupiter moving into Cancer and immediately squaring Saturn and Neptune, followed by the Sagittarius full moon, which was the lowest full moon in the northern hemisphere for well over 20 years, and it's the lowest full moon for the next 30 years. And by low, I mean low on the horizon, which means it would have been really high in the sky in the southern hemisphere. And it's followed by the Mars-Uranus square, which is still going on and will continue until Mars moves into Virgo in about 4 days' time. The Jupiter-Saturn square is happening about now, exactly, and the Jupiter-Neptune square will be, I think it's on the 19th. I'm on record as having said that by the 21st of this month, by solstice, things are going to be calming down in the world. Now, when I made my initial forecasts, I talked about 3 things. I talked about the Jupiter moving into Cancer along with Mercury and squaring Saturn Neptune, which is still going on, although Mercury has moved on now. And the fact that this is going to lead to some type of financial readjustment. Now, that hasn't manifested yet. But there's still a week to go of this, and I do expect prices at the economic level to fluctuate considerably in this next week. I talked about how the Sagittarius full moon was landing right on top of Donald Trump's sun and on his moon and opposite his sun. His outpourings over the last week or two have been increasingly changeable, and this is still going on. Yesterday, around 10 a.m. UK time, so on the 12th, I was doing readings and I saw this news flash come in about a plane crash in India. And I immediately did a chart for it. And at the exact moment, I think it was something 37 a.m. local time, the moment the plane took off, there was a grand cross in the sky. The moon was at around 3 degrees of Capricorn on the IC, opposite Jupiter at about 0 degrees of Cancer on the midheaven, square Saturn-Neptune at the start of Aries, which was opposite the ascendant at about 2 degrees of Libra. Now that was a really weird grand cross chart, and as soon as I looked at it, I thought, this crash is not down to human error. Now, I know that in the last few hours the black boxes have been found, and we'll find out what caused the crash. It's a tragic loss of life, both of people on the plane and in the hostel that it landed on. The same number of people died in that car crash as have died daily in Palestine in the last few months. And this was followed by today's news of the ongoing strikes by Israel against Iran and the retaliation by Iran against Israel. It is a war in all but name. So I thought, okay, let's look at the astrology of this now. The Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune is still going on, and the financial structures of the world are taking a hit. I expect now, as a result of this Israel-Iran thing, that the price of oil, petrol, is going to go through the roof in the next few weeks. I particularly am looking at Mars at the end of Leo. As in Donald Trump's horoscope, Mars is at 26 degrees of Leo. In the sky, as we speak now, Mars is at 27 degrees of Leo. Square Uranus at 28 degrees of Taurus. In Israel's horoscope, Mars is at 28 degrees of Leo. So let's explore this a little bit. Donald Trump was born with Mars at 26 Leo and the ascendant at 29 Leo. Mars in the sky is on top of his Mars and his ascendant now, this last 4 or 5 days, this next 3 or 4 or 5 days. So I expect him, with the full moon recently on top of his moon and opposite his sun, to be, a lot more sporadic than normal. And it's not going to get any easier for him in the next few days. I think part of him is blowing a fuse. But I would say this of any person with that chart. Mars in the sky is squaring Uranus. This is part of the manicness that I suggested was coming up in mid-June. Mars square Uranus is volatile, unpredictable, disruptive, chaotic. No one can forecast what it's going to do next. And in fixed signs, Mars square Uranus is going to go might is right. And Mars in Leo is going to go, right, well, I'm going to do it my way. Now, with Uranus in Taurus, which is where it's been for 6.5 years, and Uranus is about to move into Gemini in a month's time, and then it will retrograde back into Taurus later in the year before moving into Gemini properly at the start of next year, or second quarter of next year. But this is challenging the way we value things, what it is that is of value and worth. So if a Mars square Uranus, there seems to be a lot of, yet again I use the word dinosauric actions, where people are still trying to behave the way they've always behaved because they think it works still, when actually the world is changing far faster than most people can keep up with. I saw an interesting statistic the other day. Every second there's 1.8 children born. Every second, there's 4.2 children born and 1.8 people dying. The population is still growing very fast, predominantly amongst the non-white races. And now Mars is just about, as I speak, to move into 28 degrees of Leo, where it was in Israel's chart. In Israel's horoscope, Mars at 28 Leo is square the Sun at 23, 24 degrees of Taurus. Uranus has passed on Israel's Sun in this last year. Now Uranus is exactly squaring Israel's Mars and will continue to do so for the next 9 to 10 months. So the actions that have happened in the Middle East in the last 24 hours are going to have long-term repercussions. Yet again, we have international warfare based on different religious assumptions. And I know a lot of people, and a lot of you are going to disagree. A lot of you are going to come down and say, Israel is the progenitor of all these attacks. And others are going to say, but wait a minute, Israel has a right to existence. It's the Muslim nations who are the baddies here. There's no good or bad. Everyone has a right to live. And actually, everyone has a right to live in coexistence with their neighbours. But whilst religion maintains the difference between nations, there will always be war. Now, Mars is going to conjunct the Mars of Israel tomorrow, Saturday. And then it's going to move on, and it's going to move into Virgo in 4 days' time, something like that. And I do expect a decrease in the militaristic situations in the Middle East and hopefully elsewhere as well, notably Ukraine, Russia, which has been pushed onto the back burner, still going on but not being reported. As I said a few weeks ago, this is a crazy time. It's full of hype and spin. It is very difficult to know what to believe. I find it crazy that certain news stations in some countries in the Western world are choosing not to report stuff around the Russian-Ukrainian war or the Israeli-Iranian strikes because of political bias and political interference by their leaders. It doesn't fit the current narrative. But then, I do my best to read as many different news broadcasters as possible. I read CNN, ABC, I even listen to Fox News occasionally. I listen to the BBC, I listen to Al Jazeera. I draw the line at GB News because they're somewhere to the right of Genghis Khan. I try and get as diverse information pack as possible. But it's crazy when you see different people reporting the same story in different ways to fit their own political narrative. One of the things I said about the Sagittarius full moon was that truth is the victim here. There is no more truth. One planet, 8 billion different worlds. We're all responsible for our own perception. And it's very easy for us all to see things the way we want them to be rather than dealing with them the way they are. But when there are defenseless children and women being slaughtered, whether it's in a plane crash, peacock shouting again, it is a peacock by the way, whether it's in a plane crash, in a bombing, in a ground war or a drone war, in the name of religion, then there's something wrong with the human race. Fortunately, from an astrological perspective, it seems to me that as we get into the 19th, 20th, 21st of this month, things are going to calm down again. There are 2 more flashpoints later this year, one around the 2nd week of August and one at the end of the 3rd week of September, that they are much more short and sharp rather than long and drawn out. And I'll leave you with the idea that actually what's really going on here from an astrological perspective is that this is all large-scale jockeying for position, for control of resources, not just fuels and minerals, but water and air and land, that's coming up for a really big power grab come February, March of next year with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. But equally strong are the numbers of voices that are beginning to protest against autocratic rule. So basically, as an individual, I shall continue to speak my truth as I see it as being. And you, dear listeners, have the choice. You can put me down as a rabid right-wing fascist or a crazy left-wing subversive. You can put me down as a pro-Israeli or pro-Islamic or whatever you choose to do. But I will give you the right to reply on my channel as much as you like, as long as you don't blaspheme and as long as you don't put URLs in, because I draw the line at that. But give me the right to speak my truth as I see it. And I hope I still speak with an element of compassion and empathy for those that can't speak for themselves. Catch you later, world. Bye.